Ann Coulter's on the line, and Ann has written another great piece of As Usual, where she gets right down to brass tacks and says that we have now finally figured out what his motive was. And what was the shooter's motive?
Well, I don't know if you heard, Joyce, but apparently he was a white male.
Oh, well then, thank goodness. Timothy McVeigh's not the only one.
No, and incidentally, I wasn't on air. I was in LaGuardia trying to fly on another date in American history, September 11th, 2001. Mm-hmm. I'd say that ranks a little bit higher.
Yeah.
No, what I noticed about this, for the first part of the column, is one of my friends woke me up Monday morning yelling that it was the biggest mass shooting in U.S. history, and I have to get out of bed, and I don't have a job, so I watched TV and read, tried to follow what was going on all day. He was out. He calls me back at midnight that night and asked me what the update is, and I said, nothing. Mm-hmm. There are no new facts. We know absolutely nothing more than we did when the story first broke, and I've just found it odd that the media does not seem at all curious in finding out anything else. And, I'm not saying that any of this will change the basic narrative, but it is a little bit odd that the shooter, he doesn't fit the usual profile, which typically is either Muslim or a crazy person. Maybe we're getting a little more information now suggesting crazy person.
Or actually a crazy person not alone is a little more information.
Well, that's what we're wondering about, and this is why conspiracy theories develop. If the media refuses to show the slightest bit of interest, I mean, just to take a couple of things, I don't know, I'd be interested in if I were a reporter. The woman screaming, "You're all going to die," 45 minutes before the shooting starts. Mm-hmm. Okay, probably just a crazy woman that wandered into the concert. I will admit that's a high probability, but is anyone going to ask? Mm-hmm. I have to say, I've been away from the news for the past 12 hours, so for all I know, that has finally been answered now.
No, it hasn't even been asked yet.
Okay, and how about the $100,000? And could we find out more from the girlfriend who's been living with him for years? Did she notice anything unusual about him assembling this arsenal of weapons? I mean, CNN managed to get the full life details of some innocent meme creator within 24 hours of a mean meme going up about CNN. And you remember all of the details we had on the 100% totally innocent, falsely accused Duke lacrosse players. But the media has shown, I think, quite a striking reluctance to perform any investigation in this case. Because I think they're worried, well, if we investigate, it might ruin the fun we're having, just saying it's white men and white men we need to be afraid of, which of course was the point of the second part of my column. And that is just the heroic stories to come out of this. 22,000 people come under high-powered, sustained gunfire. And I don't know, maybe there were a few. It seems to me there have to be a few, but I haven't heard of a single trampling death yet. And if you live in the New York area, that wasn't a joke. Google Black Friday sale on Long Island. There are always trampling deaths.
Right.
There's not only no trampling deaths, but the stories of these men. These country music fans, my gosh, are they chivalrous. The ones using their bodies to protect women, standing up, risking, being shot. They're standing up in the middle of these crowds, directing women to safety. I mean, now, if a man doesn't instantly take my coat, open a door, light my cigarette, I mumble under my breath, "Oh, not a country music fan."
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's an absolutely good point. And, for all those people who want to talk about, was this particularly targeting, these kinds of concert goers, now we find out he was also headed to Lollapalooza. And they do not shield the women with their bodies at Lollapalooza, I can guarantee that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to seek out country music fans now. That's all we want to hang with, Joyce.
I agree. Men who are willing to be shot in the back, protecting me. Yeah, that sounds a little more.
No, they're stunning stories, and they really are heroic. And I'll even give credit to Cooper Anderson for an interview with that woman, Heather Melton, that totally heartbreaking story. But her husband, she says, died protecting her, protecting using his body to protect her, and as he's holding her, she feels him being shot in the back.
Yeah, no, listen, there are lots of stories of that nature. And what's even more incredible is the security guard who took that bullet and then stayed there so that they could use his key card to get into the room.
Yes. And wait, is that the black guy?
I don't even know. I haven't seen a picture of him.
Guy, which I was suspicious of at first because, again, it's a country music concert. I wouldn't expect there to be a single black person. But he was totally heroic. There really must be something about country music. He took a bullet and he stayed to help people.
Yeah, well, no, that's a different story. But the inside of the hotel, prior to the SWAT team breaching that door, a security guard was called because the room underneath was a military guy who heard the shooting above him, directly above him. He was on the 31st floor and the shooting was on the 32nd. So he called security, and this security guard went up there by himself, got shot through the door. He strafed through the door, shot him in the leg, and he continued to help the SWAT team evacuate the remaining people on that floor because he had a key card. And they're all screaming, "You need to get medical attention." He's going, no, we got to get these people out of here. That's, that's the kind of heroism that you see evidenced in these horrifying events. But the media just wants to talk about that evil white guy in the room with all those guns, Ann. All those guns.
Oh, yeah, the guns. I love listening to Democrats talk about guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the silencers and all the rest of it.
Suppressors.
Yeah, the
truth about suppressors, I know you're big gun gal, so I'm sure your audience is well familiar with this now. But if you go to these gun shops, unless you're going to do all of your shooting outdoors, the older guys in the gun shops are all losing their hearing. I mean, even with the earplugs, guns are really loud. It's not like in a Hollywood movie. Mm-hmm. I've talked to my gun guy about getting a suppressor just because. If I ever needed to use it, I don't want to blow out my own eardrums. Mm-hmm. Come on. None of these people are using suppressors. And by the way, if he'd been using a suppressor, it would have set the fire alarm off faster if the gun would have even functioned on the kinds of guns he was apparently using.
Right. And it's, the whole idea of talking now about bump stocks. It was in 2010 that the ATF under President Obama said that they were not illegal, and somehow now it's a big issue for Democrats that these things actually exist. Well, it was under their administration that.
Also, I think everyone needs to understand, even if you're thinking to yourself, even if you're not a gun person, you're thinking, oh, really? Can't you give some ground, gunners? No, the reason we cannot give any ground is all they want is a foot in the door.
Yeah, confiscation is what they want.
Oh, yeah, because once you concede the principle that some types of guns can be banned. Well, that's how we got anger babies. The brilliant decision of Justice William Brennan slipping in a footnote in a 1982 decision saying, well, I don't see the difference in the children of legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. No, as soon as you say that, yes, you can ban this part of a gun, then a judge will say, well, you've already said you can ban some guns, so I don't really see the difference.
Well, they're not even being, careful about it. You have everybody from Michael Moore to Brett Stevens in the New York Times today saying that we should repeal the Second Amendment. That's their intent. And anybody who thinks that banning, bump stocks is going to satisfy them is delusional.
Yes, they do want to take our guns.
Yeah. So listen, I'm just
which they will use guns to take away from us, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. And
so
they
it's
won't.
Not that they don't want any guns; they want only the government and cops to have guns.
That's right.
But not, poor innocent single females who might want to protect themselves.
The only thing I can hope for is that guys like Christopher Shays and all of these, crazies out there talking about how the GOP doesn't care about your life, and that's why they want the NRA to run this country and all that crazy stuff that you're hearing. I hope they all run, for higher office so that these pathetic Republicans can hold on to their majority, not because they deserve it, but because the Democrats are so much worse.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, we got to get Joe Manchin for his opinion on guns right now. He's up for election next year.
That's right.
Let's get Mr., phony gun supporter from West Virginia to weigh in on gun control. He always talks a good game when he's back in West Virginia, but he never quite follows through in the United States Senate.
You got my congressman down here, Curbelo, introducing a piece of legislation today to ban bump stocks. You don't need the Democrats. The GOP is leading this bill right now.
No, it really is striking. I turned on TV the other night, and there on C-SPAN is Tom Tillis holding a hearing on amnestying all the dreamers. Boy, these guys can move fast on some bills. They seem kind of slow on the wall funding, on the deportation forces, on everything
Obamacare
we
repeal.
Them for.
Yeah. None of that is doable, but we can get a ban on bump stocks. Watch us.
Right, and an amnesty.
Yeah.
Whoa, they move fast on that.
Yeah, they're just, it's really hard to find any solace in anything that's going on in Washington today. And the media is just, it's like watching, I would say the Enquirer, but the Enquirer has way more credibility now than CNN does. Rex Tillerson.
Oh, it totally does.
Yeah, Rex Tillerson calls him a moron or an effing moron, whatever the story is today. It's been disproved by both Rex Tillerson and everybody else, and they're still leading with the story. Doesn't matter.
On the point of why he allegedly called him a moron, that was over. Rex Tillerson is starting diplomacy with Kim Jong-un, North Korea, crazy guy, gets back from his little trip, and Trump sends out a tweet saying, I don't know why you're even bothering to talk to Rocket Man.
Right.
And then, okay, I admit it sounds like Trump being his sort of loutish self and throwing off. There are protocols for democracy, or diplomacy rather. But now I'm thinking that, imagine what Kim Jong-un is thinking here. He probably had his translator killed. No, what does that tweet really say?
Yeah, he had his brother killed.
Translator. Yeah. He must think he is dealing with an insane person. I think the whole thing could be strategic. And I hate this 3D chess stuff about Trump. But I do think it's kind of funny to imagine what Kim Jong-un is thinking.
Yeah, listen, and as I said, I don't see how that's the big news story of today anyway, but they do. And we're back to Russia.
Leading all of the newscasts this morning.
Either that or Russian collusion, which is back on the table. I mean, they just never. You got two leaders of that committee saying, like, we still haven't found any evidence, but we're going to keep looking. I mean,
no, not only that. I mean, if you tune in to it, and it's so boring, the Russian coverage, you can't tell whether it's a broadcast from October 2017 or February 2017. Nothing is new here. We're back to Manafort and the work he did for Ukraine and the Russian dossier. Yep. There is nothing new. They just keep, having these dramatic rollouts of the same headlines we had back in February.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, listen, I'm glad that you helped us to understand that it's the problem in Las Vegas was that a white man was able to get his hands on guns, and we should just leave it at that and change the laws. I mean, that's the narrative.
They always drop the many, many, many mass murders by blacks, Hispanics, Muslims, even Asians do quite well in the mass murder department.
Oh, by the way, breaking news, the NRA now says bump stocks should have additional regulations. So they've even scared the pants off the NRA. They'll never be satisfied, Ann. You and I know that.
The only regulation that is going to cut down on these mass shootings are, number one, a Muslim ban. Number two, you got to let us lock up crazy people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time, Ann. As always, talk to you soon.
Good to talk to you, Joyce. Bye-bye.
All right, Ann Coulter. You can check out her column on Town Hall or at her website, anncoulter.com. We'll be right back.